Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bikini in the Brain. I'm here with the lovely Ashley Caldwell, sir.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. So today we are going to be going into a little bit of a deep dive into peak weeks, why we do the things that we do. I feel like that's a song. Is there a song somewhere that's like why we do?
Why do we do the things we do?
I feel like I've heard it somewhere before.
Probably like an 80s ballad.
Yeah, that's it. It's
why do we do the things we do?
Those ones are always the fun ones to hear you come up with. That's funny. So we're going to go into kind of a couple of things, couple of topics. And if you guys have questions, leave them in the comments. This will be a fun one. Fun Q&A one. I'll be responding back to them on YouTube a little bit because we'll miss a couple of things or a couple of questions that you guys have. This recording is not recorded live.
Yes, the secret is out. The secret is out, guys. I am somewhere in Europe right now. I could be in Kazakhstan. I could be in UK. Could be in Romania. I don't know.
She's lurking around the shows.
I'm somewhere. I could be in the air. I could be over the seas right now.
She's lurking around at these pro shows.
So this right now, talking to you right now, is Ashley from the past.
Ashley from the past.
Ashley from the past.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to talk about peak weeks and go right into it. So I think the biggest
I could be in a peak week right now.
You could be.
I don't know.
It's Monday, so you'd be starting. Yeah, you could be like starting your carb-free days, your depletion days.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, guys. Anyway.
So one of the things that we kind of do commonly with peak week, and this is pretty standard for everyone to do this, is starting off the week usually with a depletion and depleting down carbs. It's pretty common. It's also common to do it the other way, but I would say more common than not, depletion is the scenario for most people, where you're going to deplete for anywhere between 1 and who knows how many days. It could be, I'm usually averaging between like 2 and 3 days averaging on depletion for people. It depends. There's a lot of factors that go into the depletion phase, but what you're doing when you're depleting down is you're basically kind of think of your muscle as a big sponge, and those sponges are full of carbs and water, and you're basically squeezing the sponge. And not in a sponge case scenario, but in your muscle scenario, when you squeeze that sponge and get those carbs out of you, you're more likely to soak them up faster and more than before. Obviously, in a sponge, it just always absorbs the same amount. But in your body, when you deplete them down, you'll stimulate an enzyme that basically will absorb more glycogen for a short period of time than normal. And then you can be a little bit fuller, a little bit rounder when that is triggered. So that you're kind of taking advantage of it. It's not a huge significant difference, I will say, to most people. So that's why sometimes I will even front load people too and do it the opposite way. So it's just depending on the person, what they're looking like and how lean they are. So if you're super, super lean, you might fill out all the way into the show. I had a client do the amateur Olympia. She got second place, the amateur Olympia. And she ate all the way through. Like she was just eating all the way through peak week. She didn't have any full depletion days. She might have had one light day and then it was just food all the way through. So yeah, so it's different per person based on, how many times you've worked with them, of course, like and how easy it is for them, how they hold on to carbs, how they absorb the carbs, if they hold water when they're holding carbs, how flat their stomach is when they have them. I mean, if someone is, if they absorb carbs and then their stomach's blown out every time, you front load them instead. It's not worth getting them that extra little tiny bit of fullness, but with their waistline being, 2 inches bigger, it's not worth it. Or you can have someone like Ashley, who's pretty carb. I don't even want to say what we'd say with Ashley is a carb. It's not a significant difference unless it's a ton of carbs for you. And even then you don't see a huge amount of difference you hold on to carbs really well. You don't deplete down like crazy. You hold on to carbs really well. You look decent when you're flat. Even we could see it. And of course you look a little better when you're fuller, but it's not like some girls, it's like a night and day. It's like a totally different person, but you're not as much. So why would we push it as much if you're not going to be as much? So,
right. Exactly. But one thing is for certain, it's not, if you're not ready, the carbs itself isn't going to turn you into from an amateur competitor or pro. I think a lot of people put a lot of weight into the carb up and they think like, oh, I'm not ready, but man, once I get these carbs, I will be. And they were nowhere near being ready. It's not going to make that big of a difference, it's not going to save you. If it's already you're too far off. So just something to keep in mind. But a lot of people will eat these extra carbs during the week of their show and then wonder why every day their weight goes down. And the reason being is because your coach probably has you doing decreased activity.
Yeah,
Decreased activity. You would think, oh well, I'm not moving around and I'm eating a lot of food. My coach is giving me a lot of food during this peak week and I'm losing weight. How? Like, how's this possible?
yeah. So one of the things that, so remember the peak week, and I want to go into two things here because one of them you kind of mentioned is just being in shape. You got to be in shape to be in peak week, guys. Peak week is not. So if I have someone who's, let's say, 12 weeks out from a show, really I say you're 11 weeks out from the show, because peak week itself is not a week where we're trying to lose weight. We're not trying to lose body fat. We're just trying to perfect the look. That's all we're trying to do for peak week. So it's not a time for changing everything. You're not a time to lean out the rest of the way. If you're, a lot of times people are like, oh, I was just holding water after the show. And I'm like, no, you were never lean. There was never a stage where you were lean, where now you're holding water, you're holding body fat. So you got to be honest with yourself on these things too. It's funny. I see that a lot. Oh, I spilled over. And I'm like, no, because you weren't even, when you were carb free on Monday, you still weren't in shape. You got to be in shape to do peak week to make any difference. And remember, we're just putting a little bit of icing on the cake. In a peak week sense, the cake is already probably iced. You're just putting a little bit more icing on the cake. Literally, it should be very close to what you look like on Monday. You should look like on Saturday. It's not a giant difference. Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because peak week is definitely just, I would even say icing on the cake. It should be the cherries on top. That's what it is. The cherries on top. Cake's already iced. Okay, guys. So don't think you're going to make this huge changes. And if you didn't make huge changes, it was your coach's fault and he can't believe it and you spilled over because of this. I mean, yeah, you can spill over. That's definitely possible. But the people who are generally saying it were never in shape in the first place. And they're not really spilled over. They're just still holding body fat. So that's another thing. Now, back to the you losing weight, that is going to be one of the tricks that a lot of the coaches will do, is they'll basically have your body resting into the show, which will reduce your inflammation. And you got to remember, when you're working out, you are causing inflammation. That's part of the process of working out, is you're breaking muscle fibers down. They have to recover. Water gets to the muscle fiber to help with the recovery. You're holding a little bit more water outside the muscle cell because it's part of the recovery process. When you eliminate that and you go to a very mild workout, your body is going to be holding less inflammation. It's going to fully heal, and you're going to lose that little bit of layer of blurring of the muscles that is causing that water retention. So yeah, your weight might go down, but you also tighten up a little bit, which is what we're trying to do in most cases, not all cases. In some cases, girls are too lean and we cause more inflammation, So there's all these little things that happen, and it all comes down to like your coach's eye. And that's why I even had a client message me who just started, and she was like, I want to know what I'm going to do for my pump up come showtime. I'm like, I would not know until you're in shape. I don't know what needs to be pushed, what needs to be pulled, what needs to be anything until you're shredded lean and we can see everything, So it's very person by person, but hopefully with this podcast, we can kind of answer some of those why do we do questions,
Absolutely. That was a great response. And also just rest assured too that weight is definitely not muscle you're losing. You cannot lose muscle from just a few days of easier lifting. That's not a thing that happens. So
Yeah.
don't you worry. Your muscle's still there. It's the inflammation that's gone, hopefully. So moving on to the next, water consumption. I think, well, I guess there is a counter argument to this, but the way we do things here is we don't really cut water, obviously on show day we do, because you do not want to go on stage with a gallon of water, at 9:00 a.m. you already got a gallon of water in, you're gonna look pregnant on stage. Okay. So show day is the only exception, only for that purpose, because you don't want to feel like you're bloated, and there's only so much peeing you can do on show day. So but any other day, everything's normal. I try to keep my water as consistent as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, guys. remember what they're looking for in bikini. Now, other divisions are going to be different. If you're looking at bodybuilding, they are looking for we call striated and cross-striated separation of the muscles, right? So cross striation. So if you look at a leg, look at a quad, the striated muscles are up and down, the four muscles of the quads that you can see in between the four. The cross striations or feathering the muscle is the horizontal feathering of the muscle fiber, the horizontal striations. That's cross striations or feathering of the muscles where you can see those deep grooves. You would never want to get a bikini competitor that lean. It is a nightmare for that bikini competitor. Even if she looks awesome, it's going to be last place because you could be the best physique, be too lean, and it's almost better that you're too soft than too lean. And in most cases, it's better that you're too soft than too lean for most of the judges, because the judges don't want to say, "Hey, this is the standard," and give that person a win, because it sets the wrong message, and they went past the criteria. So as Ashley likes to say, it's like the Price is Right, where you hit that perfect price, and if you go a penny over, then you're out of the game, right? So that is kind of what you're going to happen if you're really watching that water. So you don't need to get that lean. So what they want in bikini is a nice full round muscle. And a lot of that, most of the muscle is water. So if you want nice full round muscles without any deep separation, you're going to have to stay hydrated. You're going to have to keep those muscles full. And again, it comes down to just be in shape. Keep your muscles full of water, just be in shape. You don't want to sacrifice muscle size to be a little bit leaner unless you absolutely have to, and it's in your genetic like makeup where you have to do it. I've had in my career like two people who kind of had to do it, and one of them went on to do wellness, and she ended up winning pro wellness shows. So it was like it was a totally different structure for a bikini anyway. And so it's a thing that is very rare that I run into where I have to do it. Someone just naturally holds water all the time. And in both those scenarios where someone was holding water all the time, they actually were already taking like the doctors already had them taking like a prescription to have them on a regular basis just keep their water low, because they just were very water retentive people. So it's a very rare thing, and in bikini we just don't really do it. I don't even know any of the like top guys who do it unless there's like a one-off type of scenario. So keep those muscles full, drink your water as normal for the most part, and get leaner. Do the hard work. And this has got to be the kind of the synopsis of this video. Do the hard work before you get into peak week, and then peak week doesn't need to be this crazy science project.
Yeah, if you do it right, peak week should be the easiest week of your entire prep, not the hardest.
Yeah, everything pretty much stays the same. Like there's very minimal differences besides you're cutting some carbs and loading them up. But you're in shape, so that you take all the guesswork out. The problem is when I was younger, I used to go through all this crazy stuff, and I know how to do it still. It's unnecessary, So the problem is like one out of like maybe 5, you'll knock it out of the park, and the difference is instead of them looking amazing, right? 5 times, they'll look a little extra amazing 1 time. And then the other 4 times they look not as amazing as the other 5, right? So you'll get like a little bit of a better look out of it, but it's so unrepeatable. It's so unrepeatable. And that's why you'll see these people that do these crazy peak weeks, or they'll do these crazy water cuts. They'll take, diuretics for like 2 weeks going into shows, whatever. They're all over the place. They look good one day, they don't look good the next day. And then you see people who don't do those things, and they're like consistent all the time. And so, yeah, you can manipulate your sodium. You can water load and cut it. You can take diuretics. You can do all these different crazy things. But then your result is it changes so much because the situation changes so much each time. So it's not like you can write it down. Oh, this time we had 5,000 milligrams of sodium, and then we had none for 3 days, because then your body changes the next time you do it. So it's like the data gives you somewhat of a guideline, but it doesn't give you like a precise, repeatable guideline. Oh, this worked perfectly once, it's going to work perfectly the next 10 times. It doesn't work that way. It's a different situation each time. So the more variables you can throw out of a peak week, in my opinion, at least, I think the better, more repeatable end result you can have. And again, I'd rather have someone diet for 2 weeks, 2 more weeks to get them in shape than have an extra crazy peak week that's unpredictable to try to make up for those 2 weeks, which could have just happened by dieting harder,
Absolutely. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. The next one, you might see a lot of coaches tell their athletes to eliminate certain sweeteners on their diet plan. And then others will just say, this one's fine to keep in. And I think around the board, everyone here is a believer in like stevia usually doesn't cause any problems. Now, you guys probably have experience some sort of sweetener that just didn't agree with your stomach. I'm sure we've all been there. But it's important to take note of the ones that do and the ones that don't. And especially for peak week type scenarios, you're going to want to know this because you're going to want to avoid it, obviously. You don't want to be all bloated and gassy on stage, right? So just kind of stick with the sweeteners that do better with your body or eliminate them completely. And like I mentioned previously, stevia seems to be pretty safe, I guess, between everyone that I've ever talked to. They've never had any digestion issues with it.
Yeah. You know what is funny too is the longer I do this, the less I overthink those things too. Because one of them, which was actually kind of eye-opening to me, was one of the, and I won't say which one, former Mr. Olympias, we were at check-ins for the Olympia. You saw it too. And the guy won the Olympia that year, was drinking the day before the show at check-ins, was drinking some type of colored water out of a gallon jug. So he would drink a lot of it. It was a full gallon too, that also was surprising to me. He was drinking a full gallon the day before the Olympia of water that late in the day, because it was like later in the afternoon. And he had, I don't know, Crystal Light or something in the water. So I was like, okay, if this guy's doing it, cross-feathered, cross-strided, top guy in the world that year, the bikini competitor doing an NPC show could probably get away with it and be just fine, So it's come down to me more of like, okay, if you've been having this and you look good, then you could probably keep having this and still look good. Now, the thing is, some people, and this is what I used to shoot for, is I would eliminate everything and just say, hey, it's like 3 days, suck it up, it's 3 days. And maybe it will make you look 2%, 1% better. Maybe it's a fraction. But when you start accumulating all these little things, all these little 1%, maybe it'll make a 4% difference, right? So that's what used to be my kind of justification for doing it, because I wasn't sure if it would actually work, and if it did, how much it would actually work. But it was better to just be safe than sorry. So, I used to run a bunch of food sensitivity tests, and I was always so surprised at what people were sensitive to. Cinnamon and chili powder and all these different things. And I was like, wow, this is onion powder, all these really obscure things that we eat every day that we don't even kind of know. So I was like, if I can just eliminate more of those, they can look better and better. And what's the harm in them eating clean? Worst case scenario, they're healthier for a few days by getting rid of all this junk, and they look a little better. Best case scenario, right? So that was kind of always my logic. So with that one, I kind of tell the athlete, do what's comfortable to you. If you're not drinking any water at all because you hate the way water tastes without flavoring, then it's probably better that you drink it with the stuff in it, right? The difference of result is probably not going to be significant if your body's already used to whatever you're doing anyway. So, I'll leave that one up to you guys and what you feel is best there. At the same time, both arguments make sense.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, from my observations, physique wise, it doesn't really change much, but digestion, I think certain sweeteners, not all, certain sweeteners can cause me to be a little bit bloated. And I think everyone out there knows like a sweetener that's like, oh, I had that once and whoop, yep, that wasn't good to have. So
yeah, it tends to be the sugar alcohols, like
allulose. That one's horrible. Allulose. But yeah, there's a few that you need to learn whether your body can tolerate it. But anyway, moving on to the next one, exfoliating and shaving. Why do we do this during peak week? Well, for one, I got to put this out here. I get asked a lot, just like a lot of newbies will ask, do I have to shave like everything? Like my arms aren't really hairy. Do I have to shave my stomach? I mean, and I'll say yes, yes, yes. And here's why. Everyone has little peach fuzzy doodles, little peach fuzzies, like little tiny wispy doodles everywhere.
Where do you get these words?
I don't know. I'm from Ohio.
That's so funny.
Ohio.
Fuzzy doodle, wispy doodles. I love it.
Fuzzy doodles, yes. And what happens is if you don't shave those, when you get tanned, your tan goes to it absorbs into the hairs, not your skin. You might not get the full effect of the tan. But not only that, it gives kind of like a cloudy kind of look to your skin, if that makes sense. Even at the Olympia, I saw one girl, she didn't shave and then she had little fuzzies everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I can see she has like little, it's like almost like a little blur effect. that the hair gives. So yes, you need to shave everything, even in places you don't think you have hair. I'm not a hairy person. Don't let this black hair fool you. I'm actually light brown, light brunette over here. Anyway, I'm not a hairy person, and I have to shave everything just to make sure my tan is as pristine as it could be. And exfoliating, obviously, that's goes into it as well. Just exfoliating on a daily basis so that when you get your spray tan, it's nice and even. Spend extra time on those rough spots like the elbows and knees.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would definitely. I'm glad that you mentioned the elbows and knees too. That seems to be an area where people just absorb a ton of it if they don't exfoliate it right, because it's dry, and it'll be a significant shade darker when they don't. So
yep, and then when you get it off, that's where it wants to stick.
Yep. So good tip on that one, because I don't think people know that so much. So going into other one is not to introduce new foods. Like we kind of mentioned that already, but that one, I don't know the logic of people of why they do this. I see it all the time. I see coaches do it, and they'll be like, "Have a burger and fries," and I'm like,
even though you haven't had it in like 6 months,
it doesn't make
yeah.
It doesn't make it, and it's funny because I've been saying this since like 2012. I mean, 12 years or so, because people used to do it so much more back then. And I still don't understand why people still do it. It still happens all the time. I especially don't understand it after prejudging. That's what's the weirdest thing. That's like the weirdest one. They'll like have a burger and fries and a Diet Coke like after judging. They're like, it'll fill you out. You'll look good. It'll fill you out. I don't know. So the common sense of me, because I'm like a very like analytical person, and I always watched, especially back in the day, 2012, there wasn't as much stuff online where you could kind of find other people's peak weeks out and what they're doing, and there's no vlogs or whatever. So I was always like, what is this coach doing? What is that coach doing? You know, I'd get an athlete from that coach and be like, let me see your last peak week. What'd you do? You know, see if we can repeat the result, whatever. And I like look at it, and I would always like try to like pick up tricks that people were doing. And the one that really was, I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he give them a burger and fries after judging? So let's just think about it logically. The judging has already occurred. So if they're saying it fills you out and you'll look awesome for the night show, why would you just not do that before judging when it counts? You know, if something's going to make a dramatic difference on your physique and it's going to make you look so much better, why wouldn't you ever do that before judging, right? And then now let's go into it before judging. Maybe the night before the show, people will say, okay, my coach said I had a burger and fries before the show. How are they calculating that data? Because where it really stuck out to me was I was at a hotel and the coach was like, have a burger and fries. And the athletes were all excited. It was the day before the show. They get a burger and fries. They've been dieting for, who knows how long. And so they're all excited and they're all eating the burger and fries from the hotel, like restaurant they had there. And I'm like, okay, I guess it would make sense if you went to a specific burger and fry place. Like if you were like, hey, go to Red Robin and have this because you know the macros there every time. You just ordered a burger from some burger from bar at the hotel bar. You have no idea what's coming. Is a little slider style coming? Is a big burger coming? Is it huge? Is it 80-20? Is it 85-15? Is it 90-10 like the meat? How big are the portion sizes? Like they're just throwing food at you, like trying to get a result. Like you don't know anything about the burger coming. You don't live here. Like it's just a hotel. Like I just flew to a hotel. So I'm like, okay, so there is no sense in it. There can't be. And like I finally came to the conclusion, okay, there is no sense. Is it just to make the competitor happy? The argument I hear is, oh, it's the sodium. They want to give them some high sodium, give them some protein. I'm like, why would you eat red meat like 10 hours before you're getting on stage, like a deep red meat meal that they haven't eaten for 16 weeks? Gluten, they haven't eaten for 16 weeks. All these different foods they haven't eaten for that long. And you're just hoping that their body absorbs it well and they're digest it by morning time and they look at it. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's my tangent on that. But you're asking a lot of a competitor who is kind of in a digestive, kind of like a more fragile digestive state because they've only eaten certain foods for so long, especially during peak week, really cleaned them up. And then you just throw something at them right away that you have no idea how much of what is in it. It's a bad idea. It's not a good idea to get a predictable result because you can get that same result by just adding food. If your goal is to get in 50 grams of fat, just give them 50 grams of fat that they've been eating. If your goal is to get in 2,000 milligrams of sodium, give them 2,000 milligrams of sodium that they've been eating. It doesn't make any sense. So if just some common sense needs to be there, it's been a really weird, even this year was really weird, just seeing people still doing that stuff.
Yeah. Well, some things take a little longer to die down, as we've seen throughout the
Yeah.
years. I will say most people listening to this podcast probably has competed once, or maybe they're about to. And I will say, to prove that point that you just made, having our digestion system, digestive, my gosh, system being in such a fragile and delicate state. If you remember going out to eat after your show and eating something you haven't had in a while, man, it takes you, if for me, it feels like, even if I don't have a lot of it, and even if it's not necessarily like a bad food, it's just something I haven't had. I can tell, like, my body's like, oh yeah, we're having a hard time breaking this down. What is this? It just seems like the digestion just isn't, it's not used to certain things. And not that it's like I feel sick, but it's just, when you do the sport long enough, you get to learn your body, and you can feel it. Yeah. So it takes a little longer for it to digest, I feel like, when you have things you haven't had in a while.
Yeah. I've actually had like some of the girls I'll be like a little closer to on the show, though. I've had a couple of them send me like their bloated pictures, like the next day, like they'll send me a picture of like their belly, like full round bloating from not even eating that much food. They just ate something that they haven't eaten, or they're more sensitive than others. Pancakes, or the one girl was pancakes. And it wasn't even a big meal, but she was just like super sensitive to it. And she was like, I can't believe like this is happening, And I was like, yeah, that's why we don't introduce.
That's why we don't do it the night before the show.
Yeah. You don't do it the night before the show, because it's like she was actually really sensitive to it. So it happens, and it's really common, So you see that happening all the time. I don't get it. So if your coach is telling you to do that, just ask why. Like, why would I do this instead of just eating the same macros? What are we trying to shoot for macro wise? I would rather eat something that is I know my body can digest well, and I'll hit the macros that you want me to hit, whatever. But it's a pretty risky game to be just throwing in new foods. So
absolutely. And just to go along with what you're saying, also, it's the reason why we keep foods that are closer to show day easier to digest is for that reason as well. Like, you don't want, for example, a steak and potatoes, a nice healthy meal to have, but not when you're going on stage in 4 hours, because what's going to happen. That steak is still going to be sitting in your stomach, because it's going to take a lot longer to digest, right? So that's why we, typically keep food on the lighter side, more calorie dense, so that we're not having to consume a large, voluminous meal right before we get on stage, and can still get those macros. The only macro that we're not going to, get, we're not going to see very much of is protein before the show, the show day anyway, meaning on show day, you're not going to have like a lot of protein before you step on stage usually. So
yeah. And
hopefully I worded that correctly.
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay,
Yeah, you got it right.
like,
yeah,
tripped on my words there, but
you know what? While we're on talking about like show day too, I'll go into that a little bit. On show day, I think this is another thing. Athletes, you guys got to relax a little bit on this part of it, because a lot of you think that there's like this big thing that has to happen on show day, and it has to be this crazy timing of scheduling to nail your look. Okay, the nailing of your look really happens on Thursday and Friday, mostly on Thursday. So we know how low you are on carbs. We load you up a little bit. We look at your picture on Friday, and we give you a little bit more. But Saturday, guys, the time it takes for you to digest your food and get into the muscle is longer than the time it is for you to wake up and get on stage. That's what people, I don't understand why. And I give people food the day of the show just to keep them full, keep them from going a little bit flat, but it's not to get food in the muscle cell digested into the glycogen in the muscle cell and make them rounder and fuller. It's just, okay, let's make sure you feel good. Let's make sure you're not flattening out too much. Give you a little bit of water, give you a little bit of food, keep that muscle full, but we're trickling it in at that point. If it's anything, most likely that food that you just ate is going to be in your stomach still. By the time you're off the stage, you'll still be in your stomach. So these people who are, you're loading up like your honey and you're pumping it an hour before you work out, before you get on stage, that is not going to be in your muscle. That's just so you feel good when you're on stage. It's not going to help you. It's not going to be in your muscle at that point. It takes too long to digest that. So just know and just enjoy the day. When you wake up on show day, that's pretty much it, guys. You're not going to be making any dramatic changes. The only thing that you can, not the only thing, the most likely what's going to happen if you do too much on show day is it's going to make your waistline bigger, and it's going to, that'll be the only thing that generally happens. Now, water the day of the show. If you're super dehydrated come show morning and you're looking really flat, that can affect you. That can get in your muscle a little bit faster. But it's pretty minimal at that point too. So just, I want everyone to take from this podcast is that relax and enjoy the day of the show, because you can't change everything. You're not going to wake up and, look shredded, ready to win the show if you went to sleep not shredded, ready to win the show on Friday. Like, you don't wake up 5 a.m. and then you start eating food and all of a sudden you look like Ashley at your next NPC show. Like, it doesn't work that way. So don't expect a miracle to happen. You got to go into peak week in shape for it to start. But I think it's really important because a lot of girls stress so much the day of the show. Not much happens the day of the show. Even when I'm at the show with competitors backstage, we're making sure your timing is right. We're making sure that you get your glazed right. We're making sure that you pump when it's about the right time, checking your hair, checking for fuzzy doodles, like Ashley says. But that's pretty much it. We're not like, oh, you need 3.5 ounces of carb and 8 grams of honey to perfect this look and you'll fully peak out. Like, it doesn't work that way. So just know that, so you can wake up Saturday morning. Okay, this is it. As Ashley says,
He's in the barn.
you got it. Good. I was wondering if you're going to follow that one.
Yes.
Hay is in the barn, guys. There's not much to do at that point. So relax, enjoy Saturday. Don't panic, because nothing you're going to do is going to make that big of a difference. But you panicking could make a big difference. You stressing like a little stress ball can make a difference, can make you a little bit watery, So just something to, I think, take in and actually digest that and understand, okay, I'm not a professional bodybuilder looking for cross-striated muscles. What I do today is just, I need to be full and round. That's what I need to be as a bikini competitor. All those things apply to bodybuilding. They don't necessarily apply to bikini. And that's where people get confused. They see these bodybuilders like day of the show doing what they're doing, which is different. And the effect that they're looking for is different because they're trying to get paper thin on their muscles. So yeah, water is going to be different. Diuretics are going to be different. All these different things are different. But just think of bikini as a totally different bodybuilding sport, not bodybuilding as bodybuilding is, but bodybuilding as fitness modeling is, which is different. So just take that in, guys, and just enjoy Saturday. Enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Adam says enjoy show day. So
enjoy it.
Enjoy being a fit princess for a day. That's what I always say. Like, oh, look, I'm a fit princess for one day. It's like playing dress up. I love it. Anywho, let's get on. Now, as far as supplements go, there are some that we definitely want to eliminate on show week, and then some that you might want to add in. I'll give you an example of one you might want to eliminate and the reason why. You might see that your coach has creatine eliminated from your peak week plan. And the reason being is it can cause water retention, and it's kind of doing its job. It's putting muscle in, or putting water into the muscle. But it's, it's one of those things that it's not going to make a huge difference when you pull it usually, but you still probably should, unless like you're shredded to the bone and maybe you need a little more fluff to you.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's going to be scenarios for everything. That's why and that's why I don't even mind putting out this podcast, because it's like, I'm not giving you any secrets, because it still comes down to what I see needs to happen, and how you implement that is going to be the differences between winning and losing. And so if I have someone who's, looking peeled and they're too lean and I got to catch up, then maybe creatine would be a good option for them. Maybe this person absorbs creatine really well and it actually will work for them. There's some scenarios where someone who might be able to absorb a lot of carbs can absorb that creatine and make them look rounder and fuller too. And then the most common one would be you're holding a little bit of water with creatine. So it's just better to just be smarter and cut it. But again, it is always going to be like, scenario based. And so everyone's going to be a lot different. Some girls, when they work their glutes the day before the show, it actually makes their tie-ins look better. For some, it makes them look way worse. For the most part, it's usually worse, if you're working out like crazy the day before the show. So it's just so person by person. But these are some good ground rules for you. Now, another one, again, I'm going to eliminate, I personally want to eliminate the risk chance would be taking things like Expel or diuretics or whatever. Why if you're lean enough, you don't need them. So why not just be lean enough and not take that risk? The problem with cutting water or taking pills, or whatever, to cut the water is that you are never going to just cut the water that's under the skin. You can't there's not it's not a prescription or whatever out there, over the counter, anything that can say target. I want to target just this water, just this water, please. Can you please just get rid of this? That doesn't exist. Okay. It's just like losing fat. You can't spot reduce fat. You can't target reduce water. So water is in the muscle, right? If you're losing water from your whole body, you're going to be losing some of that water from the muscle. Muscle is mostly water. So when you start draining that, yes, you're going to get flatter, you're going to get smaller, and it's not going to be predictable. So is it, in your scenario, is it worth that risk of losing some muscle size to maybe be a little bit tighter, or would have been smarter for you to just been tighter going into peak week and not use any of those things in general? Most times, I would say 99% of the time, it's smarter to just be in shape going into it. Sacrificing muscle size to get a little bit tighter usually isn't the right plan, unless, of course, you have a ton of muscle to spare and you're a bodybuilder and you have to get shredded lean. It's a different game for those guys than it is for us. Maybe you're a bikini competitor who's too big. Maybe it makes sense for you to do it then, purposely bringing your muscles down a little bit, maybe getting a little bit tighter. If you're someone who's too big and for a bikini and you're never fully conditioned, yeah, maybe in that scenario it might make sense for you. But in the vast majority of it, it doesn't usually make sense. So there you go. That's my thing on it. That one, I understand coach to coach might differ quite a bit. I'm friends with a lot of these top coaches. The ones that I'm friends with and talk to all the time about things don't use it either. And that's like a solid 4 guys that are like the most like known people. So, I mean, maybe we're just lucky, but that it doesn't make, I don't see it being used commonly. So, and then as far as supplements, other supplements go too, for the most part, it's just kind of like the artificial sweetener. If your body seems to be doing just fine with it, just keep it going. You know, there's a couple things that could make you hold more water too, like Ashley talked about, but it's pretty rare that you're taking those things that will do that. And usually by the time you're in peak week, you already look good anyway. So if it is making you hold water, but you already look good, why would I want to get rid of that water now? Because you already look good and you might get too tight type of thing. So it's kind of like, just keep taking them for the most part. As you guys can see the pattern, it's like, just keep it. Okay. Oh yeah. Let's just keep it normal. Yeah. So what does it come down to then? Carbs and looking right and resting and having your body look good and look healthy the day of the show, where you don't look like you've worked. You have to look like the day of the show, you have to look like you haven't been working your ass off for the last 6 months and you're like super low in calories and you're tired and all this. You have to look like, hey, I just went on vacation. I dieted for a couple weeks and I'm on the beach today and I feel great. That's what you should look like, smiling and glowing. Sometimes you'll see people who've cut their water. They look tired. They're not smiling on stage. They look like they could potentially pass out. Like, that is not going to be the winning bikini look. Round, full, happy, healthy is the bikini look.
Happy.
Yes.
Happy.
Happy. So anything I missed on that?
No, I think you covered it all.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to think of anything else maybe we missed. No, but I don't think there is, right? We covered most of it. So
if not, leave it in the comment section
below. I think this one would be a good one for you guys in the comments to ask your questions. I'll get back to them on YouTube. There's too many platforms on the podcast, like on the, whatever, all these podcast platforms. So go to YouTube. I'll get back on that one. That one I can stick to as one. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And to present Ashley, who's not here right now, because I'm talking to you in the future. Good luck on the rest of the shows.
Yes.
Congratulations. Congratulations on how well you did. I'm not going to say you won, of course, but congratulations on how well you did. I know you're going to do good.
Okay, well, let's hope.
Let's hope. Yeah. I didn't know where I was going with that.
This could be before Kazakhstan or after. We don't know.
Oh.
So we don't know. We don't know when this will.
You're right.
So
yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
I could be going home at this point. I could be right now. I would be literally on a plane ride either home or to my parents' house in Ohio or to maybe Romania. It's either one of those 3. So.
All right. Well, I'll talk to future Ashley then.
Okay.
Bye, guys.